Hi everyone, welcome to Mastering the Art of Deluge Tech Connect series. I welcome you all to the Tech Connect series. My name is Abhilash and I'll be the host of today's session. For the people who have recently joined, what exactly the Tech Connect series is, allow me to explain. It's a month on month Connect series which is based on the technical sessions which we use to conduct. We try to bring the aspects of Deluge and we try to bring the aspects of Creator, anything which is related to the technicality of it. Similar to that, we also do have a learning table series wherein we take care of multiple industries. Like this year, we are working on 12 months, 12 industries. But when it comes to Tech Connect, specifically, everything is related to the technical aspects of Creator and Deluge. Last month, what we did was similar to it. For the recent release updates, we created a Tech Connect series wherein we added the recent updates, shown the demonstration about those updates so that everyone can understand and they can make use of it. Now, this is one of the most anticipating series wherein everyone was awaiting for Deluge sessions that can be added. So what we did is specifically related to Deluge. We are trying to this month onwards, we will be bringing a series of 5 sessions. So I'll explain it to you and the roadmap in the upcoming session. But before we get started, just to confirm the screen is visible and I'm audible to everyone. If that's a yes, please get some reactions over there once again. Great. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. Yeah, so let me move on to the slide. So first thing before we get started, all the attendees will be on mute so that we can go ahead and drive the sessions. And please ask your questions in the questions tab. Our co-trainers are ready to answer your questions right away. Just to keep you posted, a recording of this session will be sent to all the registrants, and we would request you to please participate in the polls and surveys after the session whenever you will get the chance over there. So talking about the built-in function. Now, what are built-in functions? It's the predefined or pre-created functions when we know that some of the tasks which are supposed to perform, and these are the common tasks, like without even writing a specific code or a separate code, I can make use of these built-in functions. So we can learn about all the built-in functions, and specifically when we talk about built-in functions, it's a list of so many collection variables. We do have list variables, we do have blueprint tasks, map functions, all of them together, right? So what we decided is to explain all of these functions in a series of 5 different sessions. All right, and let me just introduce you to the roadmap. So this is the roadmap for Deluge Tech Connect series. We'll be conducting a series of 5 sessions which will cover the major aspects of Deluge and cloud functions. The first session will be based out of the collection and the conversion function, which we'll be covering today. And from the next session, we'll go with the list variable, list, add and append choices, list like dynamic pick list, add to pick list, and session 3 will be based out of specifically on the utilities and blueprint Deluge task. Then we have a fourth session which will be based out of the map functions along with the XML and JSON. So we'll get delve deep into all these aspects with all the built-in functions. What we'll do is we'll try to explain you the syntax, and we'll get into some basic use case so that you can understand how these built-in functions can be utilized. Something that you might be using, probably the use cases that we'll try to showcase, probably that can be helpful for you in your organizations or whatever applications that you are building right now. And last but not the least, we do have the fifth session, which is based on the cloud function. So every month we'll be going through this session so that we'll be covering Deluge properly. Starting off with the first one, which is collection and the conversion functions. I'll go with the agenda of this first. So we'll go with the introduction of what exactly these functions and what all functions we are going to talk about. And we'll go with the demonstration with some use cases so that you can understand how that can be implemented in any of the fields. So let me go with the topics. So these are the topics that we are going to cover today. We'll cover intersect function, we'll cover get JSON, we'll cover insert, contains, to date, and we'll also try to cover to string today. Now let's go with the intersect function. So one by one we'll be covering, and this will be the format. We'll go with the overview of what this function is. there will be a syntax of it, and I'll try to explain it with an application. Then we'll try to demonstrate it, how the same can be implemented. Now, talking about the intersect function, this function returns the common element which are present in two different collections. Let's say we do have two different collections, and this is the syntax for it. We do have a variable, a collection variable, and we'll use the intersect function to go ahead and get the common elements which are present in two different collections. Now, to explain you, let's say we do have a registration process. Now, this registration process consists of multiple forms. Let's say we do have two forms which have been created. The first form is like all event registrations form, and the second one is a customer form. Now, if I want to fetch the common registrants using the intersect, I'll be fetching all the details, and then I'll put it to a common registrants form so that I can get the details. Now, how to use it, I'll be explaining it in the demonstration. Now, for that, let me get into the application over here. So let me first go back, and I'll open Zoho Creator, and let me get into the application. So this is the event registration form which we are using right now. So this, let me just walk you through the application first. Now, let's say we do have the registrations form. For that, we do have the event name, date, some other date field which I'll explain why I'm using that, then a name and an email address being added over here. This consists of a drop down specifically for the event name. The event name has multiple events. Let's say the participants are going to participate for app building. It can be part of a code creation, or probably another event like a hackathon. So they can put the event date over here, and then they can mention their name and their email address. So I'll just mention, let's say I'll mention the name as Sam, and last name, let's say Zilka, and I'll mention the email address at sam23 at zilker.com. Okay, and I'll simply click on submit, and I do have list of all the registrants. So whatever event name is there, it has been captured with the event date, it has been captured with the email address, and a name is being added over here. Now, I do have another form which is under the name of customer form. This customer form consists of the name, contact number, and email address with the event skills. Let's say these are for gaming. Some people are participating for the gaming event. Some have the skills for networking. Some do have the skills for managing the any of the events or some of the sections. So basis their skill set, they will be registering their details first, then they'll be registering for the event as well, right? So I want to fetch up the details like the common people with their email address. Whatever common email address is there basis the event, I'm trying to fetch that information and pass it under the comment registration form. So right now I'll just delete this, and let's say I'll try to fetch up this information from both of these forms. So let me do it, how to do that. So what I'll do is I'll get into the edit mode of this application, and I'll get into the workflows, and I'll get into the functions, and I'll simply click on create a new function over here. So the moment I click on create a new function, I will have an option to create a new function, and I'll just mention this as Deluge. So I'll say like Deluge intersect, or I'll just mention D intersect as the name, and I'll just mention Deluge as the language. Select the namespace as default, and I'll try to add an I'll try to create a function over here. Once I try to create a function, automatically my uh, this script mode will open up, and I'll be able to write down all my Deluge scripts. So I do have got multiple options. Let's say conditions, data access, miscellaneous, debug, list manipulation. All these options have started popping up, and onto the right side I do have the syntax assist which is switched on, and along with that different versions. So whatever we are creating right now, once we save it, multiple versions will get created. Now let's say if I want to go and check what all changes have been done, or if I want to see that how I can get the previous versions, so those previous versions can be added over there, and simply we can start from there and execute it from there itself. That's why this version came into the picture. And we do have an option for refer fields. So we can select the name of the application, select the name of the form, and the fields which has been added over here, right? So now let me try to go ahead and type those functions over here. So I'll try to create event registration. I'll try to create a intersect function. Now for that, let's say I'll start with the details. Let's say I'll create a variable under the name of C event registration. I'm trying to fetch the records, so I'll say fetch records, and I'll mention this as C underscore event registration. This is the name of the variable, and I'm trying to fetch it from my registration form. And over here, I'll see that whether, let's say, if it contains anything like code creation, then whatever email addresses are there for the specific event, all those email addresses can be fetched and will be added into my common registration form. So I'll just mention event name, and I'll just mention over here dot contains, and I'll mention the things like code creation. Now this is actually covering two topics, like this contains as well, and I'll just add the email address over here. I'll simply uh, delete this expression dot email, and I'll fetch all the email addresses. So for that, I'll mention get all. Right. In the same way, I'm going to do it for fetch the email addresses from the customer form as well. So I'll say fetch records. I'll say C underscore customer, and the form that I'm going to choose over here is the customer form. Now this time I'm trying to fetch all the email addresses. So for that, I'll say id is not equals to 0 or null. I'll just mention 0, and I'm trying to fetch all the email addresses. So I'll just mention dot, I'll say email dot get all, and that's it, right? So then we'll move on to the intersect function. Now for that, I'll try to create a variable, and I'll mention it as intersect is equals to, then we'll start getting the event registration form details. So we'll mention C underscore event registration dot intersect, and I'll mention C underscore customers. Now what I'll do is I'll try to info intersect, which is the list that I've created, and we'll also try to add it over there. So in order to add, I'll mention for each records, so for each email, and I'll just simply delete this. I don't need this right now. So for each email in intersect list which I have created over there, I'll mention data, which is equals to my registration form, and I'll add the email addresses over here. So for example, for email, I'll simply add email, and I'll try to insert this into my common registration form. So for that, I'm going to add the records. So I do have an option. Let me just add the records over here, and I'm trying to insert everything into my common registration form. So I do have the date field. So in the date field, email, event registrations, and name of event, we do have an option to add everything. So I'll just simply go ahead and add the details over here in the same format. I'll simply click on insert. So let me go ahead and add the details. Similarly, I'll just add everything into, let's say for email, I'll use email address. For name of registrants, so these name and everything, these fields actually is being added over there, hence the field link name is been popping up over here. So which will be equals to data dot the name that we are trying to fetch, and last but not the least, we are trying to mention the event name as well. So we'll say event name is equals to data dot event name. All right, now we'll try to save it, and now let's go back to the application once again. So I'll just open this application in a different tab, and let's see. Just give me a moment. I'll just open the application, and I do have the common registrants. So right now nothing is there. Now I'll try to execute it. Now the moment I try to execute it, so these common email address zhatest1 and abc@gmail.com is being added over there. So let's try to fetch the information. As you can see, with both the email addresses, I'm able to fetch the information. Right, so that is where I made use of my intersect function, and this was the syntax which we have used over here. Right, in the same way, let me just go back to the presentation once again, and let me just explain with the rest of the topics as well. So the next one is like similar to that, we do have get json. So the overview is the get json function retrieves the value from the json format. It can be a text value or it can be collection value. The return type will depend on the data type that is used as the return value, and this is the syntax for it. We do have the variable input get json key. Now in order to explain the get json, what I did is an integration between Zoho Books and Zoho Creator. So I've integrated Zoho Books with Zoho Creator so that I can push the contacts from the creator to I can push the contacts from Zoho Books to Zoho Creator, which I can utilize later on. Let's say I want to send an email to all those people or any other information which I can make use of. But right now, every time I don't have to get into Zoho Books, I will get a form. Within the form itself, I will have all the details. Let's say the name, contact number, email address. It can be from I'll just show it to you. Like over here, I'll just open Zoho Books, and I do have some name of the customers like Bob, Dylan, Sai, Sam, and in the same way we also do have some of the vendors name also that can be fetched up together. Let's say like Mac, Farm to Door, Zilker Cars. These are the different names for the customers and vendors. We can fetch both of this information and put it under a single form, and whenever we want we can make use of these contact list and use it accordingly. Now in order to do that, I have integrated it, and I'll just show it to you few more things over here. While after integrating, we'll be making use of the organization ID. So as you can see, it's mentioned as 768, this one, 861. So this organization ID, we will be using it, and apart from that, I will be using the name of the connection that I have established. Now to do that and show it to that, I'll just open the connection and I'll go into the microservices, and I'll get into the connections over here, and I'll just type over here whatever connections I have mentioned. So books to creator. So this kind of connection that I have created, this will be utilized over there while using the Deluge script. Right. So let me just show it to you how the same can be done. Now for that, I'll get on to a new function, and I'll just mention it as d get JSON, and I'll select the namespace as default, and the return type will be void, and I'll simply click on create a function. Now once I click on create a function, I have an option to go ahead and uh, type the rest of the scripts for the same. Now I'll just open I'm sorry, I'll just go ahead and start typing the script over here. Let me just zoom it a bit. I hope this is pretty much visible now. Okay, so I'll try to mention it over here. Let's say I'll create a variable under the name of response. So I'll say response because I'm trying to get a JSON response. So I'll mention it as response dot response is equals to Zoho dot books, because I have integrated it with Zoho Books and I'm trying to get all the records. So I'll say get records. Now I do have the string module where I can add the string module, string organization ID, string search, or a connection link name can also be added over here. Now for the module, I'll just go with the contacts because that's where my contact details will be mentioned. So I'll mention the module as contacts, and for the ID, I'll just go back to Zoho Books. I'll copy this organization ID, and I'll come back over here, and I'll just mention the organization ID as well. And I'll just go with the connection name as well. So I can mention the connection name was books to creator, and that is what needs to be added, right? Next to that, I'll try to info the response that we have tried to create over here, and then we'll try to add it and put it into the form. Right now, to do that, I'll just mention uh, one of the variable over here, which is like data is equals to, let's say, response dot get JSON of all the contacts. So I'll just put it in the bracket and I'll just mention contacts, and I'll try to get everything from get data and put it over there into the form. So for that, I'll say for each record, which is my get data in, I'm not using any form right now over here. I'll just simply delete it and I'll mention data, and I'll say for my name, which is equals to get data, which is a collection variable which I've created, dot get JSON, and I'll just add the details. Let's say contact. I'll just add it and I'll show it to you where I'm getting all these details from. So my contact name will be mentioned as contact underscore name. In the same way, my email address will be mentioned as get data collection dot get JSON, and I'll be adding my email address over there. In the same way, I can also add my phone number. So for that, I'll just mention phone number, which is equals to get data dot get JSON, and I'll just add my contact number over there. So for the contact number, it's been mentioned as phone. I'll just show it to you where I'm getting all this information. Let me just complete the script, and then I will be inserting this into the record. So for that, I'll use add record, and this will be added to my Zoho record books. So for the email address, I'll just mention as email. For the name, I'll mention it as name, and for the phone number, I'll just mention it as phone. Yep. And I'll simply try to insert it over here. Automatically everything will be added. Now let me try to save. I think I missed with the contacts over here. Let me terminate the sentence. Yep. So it is working fine now. Now let's try to execute the script. The moment I try to execute the script, my JSON format is now showing up. So I'll just copy this and I'll put it under a JSON beautifier. Let's say I'll go with any online JSON beautifier. I'll open it up and I'll simply try to paste it onto the right side. The moment I beautified it, you can see this is where I got my contact name. So I got a list. Under the list, I got a map variable. Under that, there's a list variable, and under the list, there is again a map variable with the key and the value is been associated with it. So over here, the contact name is like Bob. Similarly, the phone number is under the name of phone. So you can see over here for the phone number, it has been added. For the email address, this has been added over there. So as you can see now, I'll just go back to the form which I have created. So right now, if I go back to records of Zoho books, so automatically all the records, all the names which were already existing in my Zoho books, they were now started showing up in Zoho Creator. So this is how we can make use of get JSON and then parse the information in Zoho Creator and then utilize this for any other purpose as per the requirement. Now I'll just get back to the presentation once again. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So apart from that, we'll go on and we'll talk the next one, which is the insert function. So for the insert function, this is the syntax. Like to insert the key value pairs, this is how we can make use of the insert function. We have got a collection variable. We can put dot insert and assign a key and a value. And in the same way, to insert the elements, we can go with the collection variable dot insert element. Now I'll just go into a small demonstration of the insert as well. Now for that, let's say that we have many fields which is there in my registration form and which can be added to a third party services. So what I'll do is I'll fetch the registration form details and create a collection variable, and we can go with a loop to go ahead and info it, which can be added into any other services or which can be used to post the data in any other services as well. Now to do that, I'll just get into my edit mode of this. I'll simply click on done and I'll click on a new function. Now what I'll do is I'll just mention this as insert to, and I'll say deluge. I'll select the namespace as default, and then I'll simply click on create a function. Once I click on create a function, I have an option over here to go ahead and write the scripts for the same. Now here is where I'll do the same for my insert function. Now what I'm trying to do is getting the information from the registration form, and from that I'm trying to insert it, and this data can be utilized for any other third party services as well. So to do that, just give me a moment. Yeah, so I'll just start typing it over here. So let's say I'll try to fetch the records. So I'll mention it as, let's say, records. Now this is from my registration form, and over here I'll be going through all the record IDs. For that, I'll say ID is not equals to 0, and then I'll create a collection variable. So I'll just mention over here as create a collection, and I can mention this, let's say, as I'll define this as value, and then I'll use for each record. That is, I'll create and I'll add another variable over here, and I'll just mention it as element in this one, which is the record, and I'll just delete this right now and simply try to say that value dot insert. Now since it has been added in the collection variable, I'll use the insert built-in function. So I'll say insert, and then I can mention element dot, I can insert the name. In the same way, I can also go ahead and mention value dot insert, and I'll say element dot email address, and there's my email address. And let's try to info the same, and let's try to say info value. Now let me try to save it. I missed one semicolon over there. Now let me save it and I'll try to execute it. So as you can see, all the list of all this data, email addresses and everything is now popping up over here, and this can be utilized and put it into some other formats or some other third party services that can be added. Coming back to the presentation over here, so let's say the next one is like we can go with a to string function as well. Now, in order to explain the toString function, let me go with the overview of it. Like toString function, it takes an expression as the input, and it actually returns as a text. So the return type is going to be a text. So whatever data that we are going to get over there, it will be returned in the text format or a string format. This is the syntax for it, like variable, expression, toString. This is the format that we can use, or these are the multiple other formats for which we can make use of the string. Now in order to explain that, let's say I do have an application which is under the name of Zilker recruitment process. Now this Zilker recruitment process has got, let's say, recruitment companies with all the location and some recruitment company details. Some job openings are also being listed out over here. If there is any job openings, you can add it over here. Candidate application, which is the main thing which we will be focusing upon right now. So whenever we add something over here in the candidate application, I want that to be reflected under my Zoho Recruit. Now for that, I have created an integration between Zoho Creator and Zoho Recruit. Apart from that, we also do have portal registration, clients or master file, whatever we want to add it. Right now I'm just showing a piece of it so that you can understand how I can make use of the options that we are trying to use over here. So let me just show it to you how we can make use of to string. So I do have all candidates application. I have an option to add the record. Right now I'll not add the record. I'll get into the edit mode of this application, and I'll get into the workflows, and I'll simply go ahead and create a function, and I'll click on new function. Now I'll just mention this as t like candidate application. I'll select the language as Deluge. I'll select the namespace as default, and I can add the argument whenever I want from here as well, or I'll show it to you how it can be added from the Deluge scripts as well. So over here, when I get into the edit mode or the scripting mode, now let me just zoom it a bit, and I'll just start typing it over here. Let's say for the candidate application, I'll just mention it as candidate underscore application space. I'll just mention a variable c underscore candidate. Right now I'll try to go ahead and info the details, and we'll try to fetch the information. We'll use the invoke URL, and we'll also make use of the to string, and then we'll try to parse it, and we'll see how it has been added over there. So let's say I'll mention over here info c underscore. I created a collection name as c underscore candidate, and I'll try to parse the email address. So I'll just say email. In the same way, now I'll create a list variable. Now to make it easy and to denote it easy, I'll just mention it under the name of L underscore add candidate. So I'm trying to create a list variable. So if I say create list, I'll mention it as L underscore add candidate. Okay, and this will be a list variable. In the same way, I'll go ahead and create a map variable as well. So I'll say create map, and I'll mention this as m underscore parameters, and I'll be putting it under the map variable. And I'll go ahead and create one more map variable. So I'll just mention it as create map, and I can mention it as candidates, and I can mention it as candidates map. So we have got candidate map as a map variable which has been created as a collection. Now what I'll do is I'll try to add the details like the first name, last name, email address, and everything, and then we'll use the add record option, and we'll use the invoke URL to add the details and put it across, so that everything whatever we have entered in the creator, it will be added automatically to my recruit. So to do that, I'll mention candidates map dot put, and then I do have an option to add, like let's say first name. So I'll mention it as first underscore name, and the object that I'm going to add is c underscore candidate dot name dot first name, which has been added. Right, in the same way I do have an option. So I'll just say candidate map dot put, and I'll mention last underscore name, and the object in the same way I'll go with c underscore candidate dot name one dot last name. So that is how I'll be able to use the last name. And let me just go with candidate. So candidate map dot put, and this is for the email address. So I'll mention email, and for the object, from the collection variable, I'll add the email address as well. Okay, now what I'll do is the list variable that I've created, I'll make use of that, and I'll add the candidates map over here, and from this I'll use this collection, and I'll get on to the next line, and I'll mention where my m parameters dot put, and I'll put it into variable, let's say data, and I'll put L candidate list over here. Now what I'm going to do is I will make use of the invoke URL, Now for that, I need to define a variable. So let's say first thing first, I'll define s underscore url. I'll just copy that url and I'll just paste it over here so that it will be added. Now for rest of the things, I'll say m parameter map is over here. For the URL, I'll use the one which I've added over there. The request type, I'm going to keep it as post. For the parameters, I'm going to keep it as m parameters, but I'm going to use the exact function which is to string in this manner. Now this is the reason we are typing this complete code all together, and let me just put it in the correct format to string. And the connection name should pop up automatically. So I'll just go to the connection. Yep, Zoho's recruit, it started showing up automatically. And then we can try to info the response as well. M This I'll mention as response. Okay, and I'll simply try to save. Yes, this has been saved. Now let's try to execute it. Now once I try to execute it, it's asking me to enter the ID which needs to be added. Now for that, I'll simply try to duplicate the tab. I'll say done over here. I'll try to access this application now. Now I do have all candidates application. So I'm trying to add a record over here. For that, I'll try to add some names. Let's say Abhilash, my last name, some email address, then some contact number, and years of experience. Let's say 10. Then position or something. I don't want to add rest of the information. Candidate status, I can select as new or simply click on submit right now. So one of the record has been added with a record ID which has been created. Let's try to add one more so that we can use it. Let's say Peter, and I'll mention as Parker, some email address. Let's say peter@zilker.com, and I'll put the phone number. I'll simply try to click on submit. Now once I try to click on submit, I got two record IDs over here. Now I go to this list of candidates. Now this is where my Zoho recruit will come into the picture. I do have different modules. Under this candidate module, I'm trying to fetch every information for all the applicants, right? So over here right now, if I try to refresh, nothing is coming up. Now since we have executed it, we'll try to fetch the details like the record ID for Peter. Now I'll put that record ID over here and I'll simply click on submit. Once I click on submit, we got a success message that these details with the name and the contact numbers and everything with the record ID, it has been added to my Zoho recruit. Let's try to go ahead and refresh. Yes, I can see one of the information is being added. In the same way, I'll try to copy the other and I'll try to execute it as well, and I'll simply click on submit. All right, that details has also been added. Let's try to refresh the same. Yes, so both of the information has been added successfully, right? Coming back to the presentation over here, in the same way, we also do have an option like for to-date. To give an overview of the to-date function takes an expression as an argument and it returns the expression in the date format as specified in the application setting. The return type will always be date or date time format. So the syntax has been mentioned over here like variable, expression, to date, and the date time mapping, right? So it is usually used to denote the date time components for which the values in the text that stands for. Now to show it to you as a demonstration, let me just go over here and I'll just come back with the demonstration. I'll just click on done. I'll click on create a new function over here. But before I click on create a new function, let me walk you through the application also once again for it. Now let's say we do have a registration form. Under the registration form, we do have the details like event name, event date that we have selected with the date and time, and some email address and name. Now this date and time, instead of this, I'm trying to extract only the date. If I select the date over here in the event date, let's say 16th, with the date and time is coming up automatically under the date, only the date should be popped up. Now for that, we'll try to create a workflow first, and then we'll use a function along with it. Now to do that, what I'll do is I'll get over here into the edit mode of this application. First, I'll get into creating a workflow. So I'll go with the form workflow. I'll click on new, and this is for my registration form, created or edited. I'll get into user input of a field. I'll choose the event date, and I'll just mention it as extract date n as new for it, so that I can create it. Once I click on create, I have an option to add the new action over here. Now for the same, I will do the same like for the form workflows. Yeah, sorry for that. So just give me a moment over here. Okay, so I'll just try to type it. I think it's zoomed out. Yeah, okay, zoom now. All right, now I'll just mention input dot. Now my date field is going to be mentioned over there, like so. I'll add the date field for this application. I'll say this app dot. I'll just mention it as Deluge to date timestamp that can be added over there, and I can mention it as input dot event date, and I'll try to terminate the sentence, and this is what is going to happen. Now I'll try to execute it. I'll close this right now. I'll get back and I'll simply click on done. I'll create the function over here and simply click on new function, and I'll just mention this as to date deluge to date also, that can be added over there. Namespace as default. The void I'll be selecting as date, and I can specify the arguments over here. And to specify the arguments, I do have an option to add the arguments. Right now, specifically for the arguments, I can select, or I can do it later also, right? So I don't have to specify the argument right now. I'll delete this. Oh, it's already existing, so I'll say to date. Now I got the option to add the toDate function and return the value over here. Now for that, what I'll do is I'll simply go ahead and make the changes accordingly. So just give me a moment over here. Yeah, so I'll just add a variable over here. So for toDate, I'll add date, and I'll mention toDate as the expression, and I'll try to define variable is equals to toDate dot to date. This is the one that I'm going to use, and let's say I want to put it in a specific format. Let's say for this one, I'm trying to put it as dd format, so I'll just mention it in the string way. So dd comma comma yy, and I'm trying to return the value. So it should be for my variable which I have defined. Now let's simply try to save it, and I'll try to execute it. Yes, it is working. Now to confirm that, what I'll do is I'll refresh the page. And if I select some date, automatically my date should be extracted over here successfully, right? So this is how I can make use of the to date function as well. Now apart from that, uh yeah, so I think we have covered most of the things. I'll just go back to the presentation over here. Now what else is planned for the next session? I'll just move on to that and I'll just let you know. So this is all for today's session. What I'll plan for the next session is the list variable, which is on the second one. So list variable, list, add and append the choices, and how to use the dynamic pick list. For the session 3, we do have the utilities, blueprint, deluge task, map functions along with the XML and JSON. And last but not the least, we also do have the cloud functions, which we'll be covering in the session number 5. Apart from that, these are the upcoming sessions. Like this is for learning table series. As I was mentioning in the initial part of the session, we are conducting 12-month 12 industries. Like for that, next month, for the month of July, on 6th of July, we'll be talking about creator for education. Here's the registration link for the same. And similarly, for the Tech Connect series, my co-trainers will be sharing the link in the chat, and you'll get to know about the link. You can register it for the upcoming sessions for both Tech Connect and the LTS, which is Learning Table Series. So I hope you understood about the session from today's. And if you have any questions for that, please post your questions into the questions tab. Me along with our trainers will be answering your questions right away. I'll just put myself on mute for a couple of minutes so that in case if you have any queries or concern, we'll be there to answer your question. Thank you once again. I'll just put myself on mute now. Thank you everyone for your active participation. Now we are going to close the session now. We'll see you again for the similar kind of series for next month. Thanks once again. We'll see you next month. Bye.